I really love, there's a philosopher called Alan Watts, and his work has influenced me as much as Bukowski, I would say. Bukowski is not talking about Bukowski, but Bukowski's a great poet, but you know, the ideas and thoughts of Alan Watts really have influenced my chain of thought. But if it was a poet, I would have to pick, probably Walt Whitman it taught me how to, if you want to learn how to write poetry, there's a book called Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. Get it and read it. It's very thick, but it will literally teach you how to write poetry. And then just read, you know, good poets from the past, like Keats, okay. Philip Larkin is very, very good. And, you know, read these people. You know, Emily Dickinson was, you know, you want to, you know, write some dark stuff, you read her stuff. You know, Edgar Allan Poe, you want to get surreal. You know, you read these people, you read them enough that you understand what their techniques, and you steal their, not ideas, but you steal their essence. You know what I mean? And then put it into your work, you know, these people that influence you. But, you know, if I could take anyone as a mentor, yeah, probably, I don't know. I think Allen Ginsberg wrote some pretty decent stuff. Gregory Corso from The Beats, he's a little bit unknown, but he was a really good poet. But yeah, probably Walt Whitman, I think. I do this thing after I've written a book where I like to read things that I've written in different forms, in different states. So I'll get very heavily stoned and then I'll read my work, or I'll get very drunk and read my work. And I do this thing where I choose a random number and then I put the book up on the screen and I scroll through that many times. And then I read the poem before, on the number, and after it. And if they all work and they're good, then it gives me a really big dopamine hit and I'm very, very satisfied. And usually with my older work, I did this today, I was looking through one of my older books, Beat the Grass. And you know, I could see things that would improve on the piece that I was reading. But this book, I read it the other day, I got very drunk. I finished the 4th draft and my editor had sent it back to me. And I read through the book and I was so happy. I got very, very drunk. And honestly, this book is, I think every you know, project moving forward, you have to improve and you have to, you know, try and stretch yourself and take yourself into a place where you feel a little uncomfortable. You talk about things that are uncomfortable to you. And in this book, I think I've managed to tackle some quite interesting and difficult subjects in a very, very not lighthearted, but a very, very digestible, interesting way. And I think it's definitely a progression as me as a writer. And yeah, I really am very, very happy with it. Very happy with it. Yeah, there's some pieces in here that I think would translate to performance. I used to perform a lot. You know, I did 2 shows. One of them is still running, actually. The Poetic Groove is still going, but I don't do it anymore. I gave it over to the person I was doing it with. But performance, for me, always terrified me. It always terrified me. I know it was part of my job that I knew that I had to do, and I'm good at it. And when I'm in flow and on stage and people are responding, then I enjoy it. But I wouldn't choose to do it. I like the writing process. That's the part of my job that I love the most. The performance side was something, as I said, is a necessary evil. And you know, like for instance, the first time I ever performed live, I did a CD way back in the early part of my career. And I was so nervous that I closed my eyes the whole set and people were actually shouting from the audience, open your eyes, open your eyes. And then, you know, it was like I would have a couple of drinks to go on stage, and I still do that. You know, I'm better when I'm, you know, in flow with a couple of beers in me. You know, I do enjoy performing some pieces, but yeah, it's more of a necessary thing that I feel I have to do to get my work out there. Walt Whitman is 25 on a scale of 40. Well, no, if Walt Whitman is 25, then that fucking scale is fucked. Because he'd be up right over the top.
Future potential.
All future poets all lapped in. No one will ever be as, he's really is great. He's a phenomenal poet. But I mean, if it was 1 to 25, him being number 1 or number 25, I don't know. Would I even be in the list? I consider myself to be a pretty decent poet compared to, that makes me sound like an asshole. When I go to a show, you kind of listen to these people reading the stuff, and there's a saying within poets, they have the words. You know, they may not know the order in which to put them yet, but they have the words. And so many times you go to a show and you can just tell instantly. It's like a successful musician going to an open mic and realizing that they're never going to make it. And it's the same with any art form, I think. But I'm a decent poet. I love the fact that, people that respond to my work, usually people that are not really ever considered poetry. And they get into it through things that they've read from me. And this happened to me quite recently. I was recording in a studio, and the guy that was in the studio started reciting one of my pieces back to me. And he went, "No, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. You must be." And I was like, "No. I love the fact that you can remember my work." And I think on a scale of 1 to 10, Walt Whitman being, say, 25 at the top, and me being on that scale, I would probably be 4.
So you don't believe you're the greatest poet?
Not yet. I think I definitely have the words, and I have a good technique. I mean, some of the subjects I tend to repeat myself a little bit because I'm still trying to work them through in my own psyche. And when I can get past that kind of thing and move on to talking about grander topics, I don't think I've got my grandiose hat on, as it were. I'm still very localized. I talk about things that happen to me in a hope that people, when they read it or hear it or see it, will take things in their own personal life. But my next progression would be talking about larger topics, larger scales. And I think that I've still got so much to learn and so far to go, but I'm really looking forward to going there and learning that. Yeah.